role of Venezuela now as central, as the most important facilitator for Hezbollah in Latin America. It didn't start that way. In the 1990s, 1980s, 1990s, what Hezbollah did was principally move into Colombia as the jurisdiction by which they either obtained legitimate or illegitimate fraudulent paperwork in order to facilitate their movement undetected or uninspected around the region. In fact, one of the main perpetrators of the AMIA bombing, which is still the most deadly terrorist attack in Latin America to this date, held a fraudulently obtained Colombian citizenship. So Colombia was the logistics hub at the time. And then they moved into the tri-border area where they engaged in a variety of money laundering schemes. They were not initially into the drug trade, but pretty quickly they moved in that direction. So for instance, if you talk to Paraguayan authorities today, they're very, very concerned about Bolivian origin cocaine still being processed into black cocaine masked as charcoal briquettes. But they also moved into the drug trade in force with the FARC in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that brought them into contact with the drug traffickers on the Venezuelan side of the border. When the Department of Defense shifted focus in Colombia from eradicating coca to arming, training, equipping the Colombian Special Forces to go after the FARC, it inevitably pushed the drug trade across the border into Venezuela. And of course, Hugo Chavez was more than willing to accommodate. And the Hezbollah operatives who were next to this trade, involved in this trade, Chakri Harbin's been mentioned, there are many others, they followed suit. And they began setting up shop in Venezuela. In fact, as the Treasury began to move after certain of these individuals, for instance, we designated Ali Mohammed Salah as a narcotics kingpin in 2011, and then we went after his brother in 2012 and designated both of them as terrorist financiers. They left shop in Colombia and set up shop across the border in Venezuela. One of the individuals I want to highlight for you here, who is really one of the spiders at the heart of this web, is a man named Ghazi Nasreddin. So Ghazi organized, prior to this shift into Venezuela, Ghazi organized a drugs for weapons deal with the FARC that benefited Hezbollah. Ghazi has been a Hezbollah operative for many, many years, but he also holds Venezuelan citizenship, and he served in senior diplomatic posts, particularly in Damascus, where he personally arranged meetings with Hezbollah officials and the issuance of Venezuelan passports to Hezbollah operatives to conceal their identities. Under Hugo Chavez, Venezuela opened its doors to Hezbollah, allowing the group to establish a major footprint, including a paramilitary training site on Margarita Island. As far back as 2002, 2003, when I was at the Pentagon as the Assistant Secretary for Special Operations, we had indications of document forgery on that island, and I've seen documentation that the Venezuelan government was awarding contracts to Hezbollah front companies as far back as 2001. When Maduro seized control, the breadth and depth of the Hezbollah presence in Venezuela dramatically expanded, as did their ties to the narco-terrorist regime and the Cartel de los Sols. Tariq al-Assami, who's been referenced here, held a number of senior regime posts. One of the most critical was he was head of the Venezuelan Passport Agency. And in that role, he directed and facilitated the issuance of a large number of passports to Hezbollah operatives and Hamas operatives. Now, I have seen from the Venezuelan opposition a database of more than 10,400 people that were given Venezuelan passports who were Syrian, Lebanese, or Iranian citizens up to 2019. I haven't seen the more recent data, but we know some of those individuals made their way to the United States, and some of them have direct ties to Hezbollah. As we've now seen lately, as the Israelis have pressed the offensive against Hezbollah back in Lebanon, Saudi press has indicated that a direction has been given for 400 Hezbollah field commanders to evacuate to Latin America, and Venezuela is specifically identified. I don't have information that Maduro is facilitating the issuance of passports for that purpose, but if past behavior is any indication of preference, he likely will be. And I'll conclude with this to say that first, while under the control of Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah operatives were discouraged from the drug trade, at least publicly. Now, privately, the Shura Council never really, they turned a blind eye to the profits coming in. But because the terrorist group is under such financial stress now, my advice is that we look hard at Venezuela, because they will go in whole hog with the Venezuelan regime and with the drug trade to supplement the income that they've lost. Venezuela is a willing safe haven for what remains as the most lethal, dangerous foreign terrorist organization to the United States, and that is Hezbollah. Thank you, sir.